Okay, so we are covering functions, files, and sorting today. Then Thursday, we're going to finish up with Perl's object and module mechanism. And then next week, we will start into PHP. I wanted to say a couple things about the homework assignment. So, been getting some questions on problem 2, which is where you verify the input. I actually don't have so much to say about how to do it because I've been answering those questions, but there is something, you may not have been told how to write nice error messages. So when you write an error message, it's actually good with an error message to echo out. So a good error message echoes out the bad input so the user can see what it looks like. It also indicates the format for valid input. And sometimes, although I did not require this, sometimes it's good to have the line number. So those are the elements of a good error message. So it's just saying bad room type isn't very informative to a user. Because they don't know why it's a bad room type. And if you haven't echoed out the line number and there's multiple room types in the input file, they won't even know which line or which room type your message is referring to. So it's a good idea to actually echo out. So here was, I tried it, my file on something, and it's things like your name, your name, 3/2/2010, and a lot of spaces, must be 30 characters or less. So it's echoing out the bad input, which is 3/2/2010, and it's saying what the valid one should look like. Or it says your club membership ID, which in this case was a blank, must be either PLDDD or GLDDD, where DDD is a number from 1000 to 1099. So it's giving feedback to the user about how they can correct that input. So not just that their input is wrong, but how they can correct it. And those are the elements of a good error message, which you should get in the habit of printing. Number 5, you are asked on the homework assignment to tally students' grades. Let me come up with a homework 6, sorry. Problem 5. So you're being given input, last name, first name, assignment type, and score. And you're being asked to print out some information, a weighted score based on the 3 types of assessments: homework, final, and midterm. Now, if you were doing this in C++, what you would probably do is create a class, probably called something like student, and you would probably, you might make it public, create some fields for the last name, the first name. I'm going to start abbreviating: first name, the maybe character, well, no, it wouldn't be character because it's a string. So I'll say assessment type. So AS underscore is assessment or assignment type. And then, whoops, that's not right. You don't care. That's input. So for a student, you're keeping track of then the homework score, the midterm, and the final. So you'd probably have something like that if it was C++. And then when you read a line, you would check to see, you would store these records, instances of student, you would store them in some search structure. Maybe a tree, maybe a hash table. Should be a hash table. Does anyone know why? Even if it's C++, you should use a hash table rather than a tree to store these records. So so duplicates is not the issue here. It looks, but both a hash table and a tree will look it up on key. Yes.
Is it because you're unlikely to do a range of students?
Yes, it's because you're unlikely to do a range of students, to ever care about a range of students. And if you don't care about a range of students, then what are the respective lookup times and insert times? Constant number, constant for hash table, log n for a tree. So the only time you really should be using a tree is if you need a range of students at some point, and you don't. So if you were doing this in C++, I would suggest you have a hash table that is keyed on last name, because you can assume the last name is unique for this problem. And then as you read each line of input, you go to that hash table, you determine if the student is already in the hash table. If the student is not in the hash table, you create a new instance of student for that particular student and insert it in the hash table. If it's already in the hash table, you update the record. Okay? However, in Perl, you should basically be using the same strategy, but I can tell from some of the email that I've been getting that you're not always using the similar strategy. So one strategy I've seen is 3 dictionaries, one for homework, one for midterm, and one for final. That's really not a good design technique, okay, because it doesn't collect all the information for one student in one place. You want all that information stored in one place. It should be in a record. The way you do that in Perl is you create an anonymous hash table where the keys are the field names and the values are the field values. So what you should be doing for this homework assignment is creating a hash table to hold these student records. So that's kind of like what you would do in C++. So the hash table is going to be keyed on last name, because I'm telling you it can be considered unique. I'm abbreviating it here as LName. And then each value is going to be a pointer to another anonymous hash table where you'll have the field names like first name, homework, midterm, final. You actually don't have to store the last name because it's already known from the lookup. So that's what I expect you to do on this assignment. I expect you to use anonymous hash tables to store individual student records, and then a global hash table, which is keyed on last name, to store all of those records.